What are the Pacers saying about their defense? How it will be different, how things could change, how it could actually help them, and what are they doing to implement it and have things be different than last year? Plus, the first round picks practice for the first time, and Obi Toppin and Myles Turner, their fit together was discussed today, and I have some stats on that. It's all coming today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, first of all, the NBA is back. If you're awake, it's probably already started. 9 a.m., Timberwolves Mavs in Abu Dhabi. We are back. There's hoops. There's stuff to talk about. And in Pacerland, we're talking about training camp rolling through. A lot of fun topics coming up this week. The Pacers talked a lot about their defense this week, what's going to be different, how that's going to hopefully have them be a better defense than last year, because they did have a defensive focus last year too. The first round picks practice for the first time. Got to hear about how that experience is going for them, what their impressions are from other teammates. And I want to talk about the Obi Toppin plus Myles Turner fit, as well as the Pacers lineup so far in camp. Lots to dive into today. We'll start with the defense, the biggest story in camp. So much so that Rick Carlisle on Wednesday, after many questions on media day, or on Tuesday, but on media day and Tuesday, Rick was asked another defensive question. He was like, let's stop talking about defense and let's just play defense, right? And that is the big thing for the Pacers this year. They're going to have to play defense. 26th last year, worse than that the year before. They've been the 30th ranked defense after the All-Star break in each of the last two seasons, right? Clearly, the defensive focus last year didn't amount to much. Now, they were young and not a net talented defensive group. They have added some talent, but they're going to have to do more than that. So what does that entail, right? Bruce Brown has been trying to instill some defensive things into the rest of this team. They're trying to change some things. What does that actually look like? Well, first of all, staff dynamics have changed. Ron Norred is gone. Jim Boylan is now officially an assistant, former head coach of the Chicago Bulls, works with Team USA sometimes, and he has been working with the defense. Now, let me be clear what I'm saying. He's not a defensive coordinator. In fact, the Pacers have ditched the coordinator model. That's something that Rick Carlisle told us when he described the staff changes in July, and reiterated again this week. But he has been working with the defense. A couple of players, when asked about his involvement, have said, yeah, he was one of the most involved assistants when working with the defense. So that's one change on the defensive end, is they have more people involved with a new heavily involved coach that wasn't even involved last year. The Bulls played quite unique on defense with Jim Boylan as the head coach, but we will see what that looks like with the Pacers, because it sounds like they're changing their scheme in a way that's different, right? And Bruce Brown kind of described it, right? Bruce Brown, he said he's learning too, right? Because the whole defense here is new to him compared to what they were doing in Denver, compared to what he's done with past teams before, and you can't just go by what you saw playing against the Pacers last year, because they're changing it a little bit. He said it's more reactive than it has been before, right, to what's actually happening, to guys guarding their yard or failing to do so, and then reacting to that, making plays and things like that. And that kind of tailors to more individual defense, right? There's not a low man as often, he described. He said more guys are helping out on the boards. And if you remember, Rick Carlisle had a very pointed comment about rebounding on media day. We got to effing get the ball off the rim. And not only is that important for stopping possessions, right? The Pacers have not been a good rebounding team. You know, Turner average at best, definitely below average for a center. They played small last year, not a good rebounding team, right? They've got to be better in that way. And that also snowballs to help their offense. They're a good transition team. They were second in transition frequency. They can score well in those moments with Halliburton, with shooters, with Toppin, with Brown now. They have to get the rebound and actually get into transition. They're good at finding ways to play in transition without getting the board, but it's easier if you get the rebound. That is the easiest way to play in transition. They've got to do that. So that's some of the tweaks that we heard from Bruce Brown about the shift in low man philosophy, more reactive, more help on the boards. But the emphasis truly is just on stopping your guy, right? That's something the Pacers said a lot last year, but part of it this year is the guard your yard philosophy is back and in full force and being discussed a lot. And that was their biggest problem, right? Clearly, Myles Turner was cleaning up everybody's mistakes. Guys were getting beat on the perimeter all the time, or they weren't shifting around correctly to help, or their closeouts were bad, or a combination of all of those things, and everybody could get to the rim whenever they wanted. And it's not even that teams like just piled in from the rim against the Pacers, although they kind of did. But Turner was down there to deter some of those. But if Turner's rotating, someone else is open, or a three-point shooter is open, or just any sort of spray out pass is open. Like, it all stemmed from that beat on the perimeter, something the Pacers are doing to both improve individual skills on offense and defense, is they've been doing these one-on-one tournaments at practice. We don't get a ton of insight into the why. Some of it is the defensive improvement. Some of it's that guys like one-on-one. Benedict Mathurin was in the finals the first day of it. Obi Toppin was in the finals the second day of it. But what we don't know is anything else. No one would tell us who the other finalists were, who actually won. If you asked me to name the best one-on-one players on the Pacers, those two would have been in my top 5, as well as Tyrese Haliburton. I'd have to think about my full list. So it's not surprising they made the finals of whatever the tournament is, but that is an interesting way for them to add pride into it in that kind of setting and reinforce you got to guard your guard like this. When your man has the ball, you've got to shut him down. And so doing well in these drills is at least an encouraging sign of how the Pacers are trying to tweak things defensively, internally. Nesmith, Aaron Nesmith was asked about the defense as well. He was, he kind of lit up when asked about if he thinks the changes are positive schematically on defense. Yes, he said none of them will get anything too specific. They're going to get scouted. They're just going to play differently. Nesmith said that he kind of described the Pacers' defensive changes as what they're trying to eliminate is different. The shots they're actually trying to prevent from happening, or the areas they're trying to prevent opponents from getting to, have changed from last year, right? That would be a difference in philosophy completely. I would like to dig in more on that. I haven't been able to yet, but I think that is really interesting. I'll be curious what that actually means. Like, every team wants to keep guys out of the paint. Is there something else to it? Are they inviting certain types of threes? Are they inviting other certain types of shots? What is that actually going to look like with their personnel? But when you're forcing different shots, that will make you play differently. So I'll be curious what that looks like. Nesmith, I think, is going to be given these changes that I've talked about so far and what we've heard the Pacers say about how their defense could change. Nesmith seems like kind of a key piece to all this, right? He can guard effectively on the ball. He is good at preventing guys from getting to their spots because he's strong. He's got good foot speed. He doesn't quit on plays. Like, to me, a lot of the stuff that it sounds like they're going to try to be a little bit better at, he's already kind of good at. So he seems like a key piece to this team defensively. The more time passes, the more I think he should be a guy that I already think he should be in the rotation, but I'm close to saying, like, if I were in charge, he'd be almost a lock to play, and I would build out from there. I just wanted to throw that in. But his comments were, of course, insightful on how they're changing defensively there. Myles Turner, of course, the defensive leader and anchor who's been a part of and the best defender on 2 top 6 defenses in the NBA. He, of course, he always does this, and I appreciate this from him. And I think there is a lot to this, but one of the he wouldn't get into the schematic shifts too much, but he said effort is, of course, the biggest thing they have to change defensively. That answer always hits me in 2 ways. One, like, yes, okay, improve your effort, that's good, but 2, like, that's almost should be a given. And if effort is the reason you're not playing as well as you should, that's a problem in its own way. So I'll be curious if that could be something that happens all the time. Conditioning is an element to that, as Mathurin's admitted. But again, seeing a team in shape and giving it all on every possession should be as close to a given as possible. That was one of Nate McMillan's strengths as head coach. Myles didn't describe the shifts in their defensive scheme as he said, it's not dramatic, right? It's going to be different, but not so much so that it looks like a different team, like it was like McMillan to Bjorkgren. Totally dramatic, different stuff, right? Like, I still think the Pacers will switch a lot, and I still think they'll try to prevent middle drives as much as they can. But there are different ways to do it. There are different emphases. That's a word, I think. There are different things you can emphasize, and Myles Turner can still be back there to clean up the messes. So that's everything we've heard about the Pacers' defensive changes so far. Obviously, come Sunday, it'll be a lot easier to talk about it because we'll see it in a game against the Grizzlies team that has some shooters and has some attackers and has some tough guys to defend. But it's been really interesting to hear all of these like little bits and pieces more from every single player to get the whole picture, right? What everyone has given like part of the change, but not the whole picture. But we can piece together a lot from everybody to kind of put together how the Pacers could defend differently this year. And if they don't defend well, and to be clear, given their talent level, I still think they'll be a bottom 12, 10 defense this year, right? My official number when Caitlin and I talked was like 21 or 20, but they have to be better. They can't lip service it again. I mean, they shouldn't lip service it any year. but they have to be better. They have to get better on the end of the floor. They've admitted it. They can score with anybody. They've got to defend if they want to make the postseason. It's going to be vital to see those changes for the team. And if not, more conversations have to happen about how they can get better defensively and what changes they need to make once again. Let's talk about some other stuff we've gotten out of camp, including the Obi Toppin-Myles Turner fit, rookies first day, the starters, and other lineup stuff as we continue with today's show. Before we dive into that, though, I want to really quickly talk to you guys about Birddogs, one of my favorite companies to talk about. I have 4 pairs of their shorts and 1 pair of their pants. So what exactly is Birddogs? They're stretch khaki shorts and pants, and they're designed to fit slimmer through your thigh and legs to give you a sculpted look. Their shorts are the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit a lot better, right? They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of like a stiff, restricting cotton. They got rid of that issue. They invented their own cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but it stretches, so you get that slimmer fit without having to sacrifice any movement. They have their own anti-stink sweat wicking fabric, keeps you cool and dry all day long. I wore them around New York City for multiple days. Didn't sweat. They were comfy. You can do them. I've worn them golfing before. I wore them to the pool in my parents' neighborhood before. Lots of functional reasons and uses for them. They're my favorite shorts. You got to try them yourself. Go check them out. Birddogs.com is the way to go. And you get a free gift water bottle. I have a hat back there. I have a tumbler. You can also get a free gift water bottle with your purchase now if you enter the promo code LOCKEDONNBA when you check out at Birddogs. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. I can promise you that. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, Locked On Sixers for James Harden not making a scene on day 1 of camp, or Locked On Suns for a team that had a happy-go-lucky media day and is going to be really interesting this season. Brendan Clean will have the latest from the Valley. Let's continue through Pacerland in segment 2 here, where we're going to talk about the first-round picks, their first practice for Ben Sheppard and Jarace Walker. First of all, if you want more on a fun story, if you missed it last week, I believe Friday, it might have been Thursday. The Pacers were in Nashville last week for a little team minicamp, and there's a great video on Tyrese Halliburton's Instagram story. They went out to dinner, and Jarace Walker got the bill. Rookie duties. He said, "I'm sweating" when he was holding it, little under $9,000 bill. It was fun to ask him about that experience. I have a story on it up on Pacers SI if you want to read more about it. And Oscar Shibwe saying, "I will run to the bathroom and leave to avoid the bill." Pacers do a good job of balancing the rookie duties and not taking it too far. Like the popcorn in Cassius Stanley's car was funny. Saran wrapping Matherin's car last year. It's good stuff. Anyway, first practice for Ben Sheppard and Jarace Walker on Tuesday. Of course, seeing how they stand out is going to be interesting. The first thing I would note is, and I think this is smart by the Pacers, they were in the same lineup. Sheppard and Walker were that day. We'll talk more about lineups later. Don't react to that in any sort of way as it comes to the rotation. I'll explain why later. But this is something I learned covering the Fever, actually. The Fever 2 years ago, my second year on the beat with them, had 8 players at one time on the team, I believe. Might have been 7. Either way, who were rookies. Over half their team was rookies. And a lot of value from that came because, like, they'd be playing together, scrimmaging together, and a player would ask a question. And a different player on the team who didn't even think of that thing that was being asked about benefited from getting that information or hearing the question. Like, that was good for everybody to have them kind of combined and in units together. And so for Walker and Sheppard, if they're together, if they have a question or they need resource from somebody, well, having them together, they can both get the information and find that out. Jarace said came in early at practice, got some tips from Buddy Hield. He has been working with Myles Turner under one of the baskets after practice, in the part that we can actually see. Man, are they throwing down some lobs on that basket. But yeah, their first practice this week. Ben Sheppard said it felt like Christmas Eve the day before. He was a little anxious driving over, but it's NBA time for these guys. And they actually described something interesting, that they felt like they had a head start on a lot of what the Pacers are doing, especially defensively, because of Summer League, right? You could see Kaylin Cooper, who's been on this show quite often, friend of the pod, and wrote a great piece about this on her Patreon, like the changes in the Pacers defense at Summer League as being some of the stuff they could try this season. Well, it seems like that's definitely the case now, given what the rookies have said and given how the defense has been talked about. So if you want a very insightful look into the Pacers' new league defense, Caitlin can help you there. But the rookies had, they knew the terminology for the defense a little bit better right away. They've done it before, so that helped them with confidence. And that's a good part of the new rookie experience, right? Something Rick Carlisle talked about is, for rookies now, like their whole summer's planned out from when they're drafted, or like more so than it's ever been before. And it gets better and better every year. So they know what to expect when they show up in terms of what's expected of them, what they're going to do, all sorts of stuff. So they felt like they had a head start in that way. I think that made them comfortable, but a lot of the stuff that they did was impressive, and them overlapping, I think, on the same unit makes a lot of sense. Rick Carlisle said going through these practices and all this stuff is super valuable, and he liked their enthusiasm in practice, number one. But this was funny from Ben Sheppard. I asked him if anything surprised him or stood out to him that he didn't maybe expect from his first NBA practice, and he said, "Well, having Coach Carlisle out there actually was something that threw him off, because in summer league practices, like, Rick was around. We talked to him after the first one, but he wasn't standing on the court or like providing a ton of instruction, at least by all accounts. That was the staff that was running that team, right? General Pargo and the assistants. So now Rick's standing there and he's providing instruction. And Sheppard said his intensity was what stood out there. No, he said it was a little intimidating at first, but he figured it out. He got it all going. And Myles Turner, of course, of the rookies, said there's a learning curve, but I like the energy that I saw. So in general, a good start for those guys. Their unit they described, they said 4 of the same 5 players, right? Jarace Walker said the lineup he played with on day one was Andrew Nembhard, Ben Sheppard, Jordan Nwora, Jarace Walker, Daniel Theis, right? Makes sense as a bench group. And then Ben Sheppard said his group was Andrew Nembhard, Ben Sheppard, Daniel Theis, Jarace Walker, 4 of the 5 the same. And he said Bruce Brown. And I went, that's different. And I think that Jarace is correct. And there was just a slip there from Sheppard because, and this is the second thing I want to talk about here before we get to the Toppin stuff to close out today's show. When I asked Bruce Brown what lineup he worked with on Tuesday, he said he worked with Halliburton and Toppin and Turner and Mathurin. Sure sounds like the starting 5 to me. Now, don't read in the lineup. First, before we get going, do not read into lineups too much in camp. Teams mix and match. They're exploring combinations. There's competition. They have to explore lots of stuff. That said, that group wearing the same jersey colors that day, I think being together is like exploring the starting 5 for day one of camp. So it sounds like that was at least the day one starting 5. And then the bench groups were mixed and matched with various combos of young guys and vets, right? If you can just do reduction backwards from the rookie lineup, that means the other group had TJ McConnell and Aaron Nesmith and Buddy Hield and one of the other backup 5s. And I don't know who would be at the 4 for that group. I'm blanking. Maybe both other of the young bigs were the front court for that group. Actually, that is probably it. It was probably McConnell, Hield, Nesmith, Jackson, Smith was the 5th group, right? So like both reserve groups had some guys who are expected to be a part of the bench and some guys who are expected to maybe not be. And I like that mixing and matching. In fact, I am guessing that the starters will not permanently be together for every day of camp. Just using my eyeballs too, it's a little over guessing. So we've heard that the starting group at least one day was what it was expected to be, but also the Pacers with their reserve groups and probably their whole team are mixing and matching somewhat to figure out fit, to figure out who should be getting these minutes at various positions. I think that's a smart way to do things. And then we'll find out what they really think of the rotation come Sunday with preseason game 1. But the projected starting 5 from the summer does sound like it's going to be the starting 5. And I think Isaiah Wong's been sneaking into stuff with TJ McConnell, of course, having that ankle thing, although it looked like he practiced more from pictures. It looked like he practiced more on Wednesday than he did on Tuesday. Again, he's dealing with a little bit of an ankle thing, and that's why Andrew Nembhard's getting some more ball handling reps, which is good either way. So a small benefit of that for the Pacers. One more segment here today. I want to talk about the Obi Toppin-Myles Turner front court because I did a story on it, and because, boy, do I have a stat about Obi Toppin that's going to blow your mind. It blew my mind. And I actually had to triple check it because I thought when I posted it, it was going to be wrong because of how surprising it was to me. We'll get to that to close out today's show. Before we do that, though, I need to talk to you guys about FanDuel. The NFL, it's rolling. The Colts, Anthony Richardson, they're fascinating. Week 5 coming up. Snap into the NFL action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers on FanDuel get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's it, $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now with the NFL rolling. You can do all the fun stuff there, the spreads, the player props. They have a wide range of betting options. They've got the over-unders. So check it out. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season and get that offer. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, Locked On Clippers should be the way to go. Clippers camp in Hawaii. Darian Vaziri will have the latest on the Clippers, the policy about resting, what the team is saying about that. And they're just a fascinating team to me this year. They did not make a lot of changes after their first-round exit last season. What is up with the Clippers? Check out Locked On Clippers for more. Let's close out today's show with the Obi Toppin-Myles Turner combo. We talked a lot about Obi Toppin this summer and his fit with Halliburton and his fit with the Pacers. I want to talk about a different fit for him, and that's his fit in the front court next to one Myles Turner. So here's what got me going on this. First of all, I asked Myles about his fit with Obi at practice Tuesday, but I said I want to do more on this, so I dove into some numbers. Obi Toppin has played just under 3,000 minutes in his career, which, first of all, that blew my mind. Is that low? He's played less than 1,000 minutes per season of his career. He has played 3,000 minutes of his career. 5 centers with the Knicks overlapped with Obi Toppin for more than 100 minutes in that stretch. 5 centers, right? Those 5 guys were Taj Gibson, Isaiah Hartenstein, Mitchell Robinson, Jericho Sims, and Nerlens Noel. Those 5 centers, again, played more than 100 minutes with Obi Toppin with the Knicks across 3 seasons of time. In total, those 5 big men in nearly 3,000 minutes of action hit a combined 8 threes. That's it. And 7 of them were Taj Gibson, who I don't even consider a shooter at all. One of them was Isaiah Hartenstein, who was 1 for 11. Jericho Sims and Mitchell Robinson, not only did they make 0, they didn't even take a 3, and Nerlens Noel was 0 for 1. So you can do the math pretty quickly. 8 for 28 was the partnership for Toppin's centers his whole career. That blew my mind. Both that number was 8 threes in almost 3,000 minutes, and that the attempts number was 28. So this really made me want to dive in on the Toppin-Turner pairing, because that is totally different. Turner made 93 threes last season himself. He's been well over 30% of his whole career. 35.5%, I believe, is his career number. Like, that dynamic is totally different for someone like Toppin. Like, I know I've talked about the spacing before and how Mitchell Robinson can be different. Also, Taj Gibson is his most common center partner, not Mitchell Robinson. Either way, not a ton of spacing there. I actually jokingly said, like, what do you think it will be easier for you with more spacing? You've never played with a floor spacing big man. That wasn't exactly how I said it. And he said, hey, Taj Gibson could space the floor a bit. And I laughed. I thought he was kind of kidding. But Taj Gibson playing with Obi Toppin was 7 for 16 from 3. That's over 40%. Good for Taj Gibson. But this is a new dynamic for Obi Toppin completely. Mostly even on attempts. Myles Turner is going to take 28 threes playing with Obi Toppin by Thanksgiving. Probably before that, right? So that new dynamic, I think, is going to go a long way in making Toppin look effective in a different way, but still a way like we've talked about with Halliburton and the transition game, right? Everything about Toppin's fit with the Pacers and his opportunity is just better for him. With the Knicks, he was behind Julius Randle, which makes sense. None of this is a knock on the Knicks. Let me be clear. They've had quite a successful 3 years with Obi Toppin on their team. They won a playoff round last year. They have 2 All-Stars on their team, 2 All-Star level talents on their team, right? Being behind Julius Randle is not a bad thing. Julius Randle is really good. He was an All-NBA level player, right? Mitchell Robinson's a good fit for them. He's been a great defensive center. He scoops up the boards. He kicked Jarrett Allen's butt in the first round this past year, right? It makes sense why he wasn't playing that much with the Knicks. It also makes sense why they play the way they play. Tibbs has his style and it worked for them. So I'm not saying the Knicks did something wrong. I am saying that Obi Toppin's going to play a lot more with the Pacers. He's not behind Julius Randle. He might start. My guess is he will start and play at least half of every game. He also is playing with Tyrese Halliburton, the best passer he's ever played with, someone who also thrives in the open floor where Obi Toppin is at his best, right? And can set him up from everywhere. In fact, I asked Obi Toppin, what do you think your best skills are in the half court? Because we've talked a lot about his transition game all summer. Rightfully so. He's a beast in the open floor. What do you think you do well in the half court? And the first thing he said was cutting. And I think that will pair well with Halliburton and what he does and how he gets guys open. He also talked about, vertical spacing and finishing around the rim and all that. And we the fit with Halliburton's better. The minutes are better. But the fit in the front court has not been discussed that much. And I think it should be because it makes a lot of sense, right? Myles Turner said, Obi can shoot, Obi can spread the defense out, but he can also put pressure on the rim with lobs and that type of stuff where I can space and shoot. So it should be a natural fit. Rick Carlisle, first of all, talking about Obi Toppin, said he can run like a deer. And that's one of the things in draft scouting for me that always stands out when big men can run like, I always use the animal gazelle, but same concept. And even Rick Carlisle said today, has a very great opportunity here. Something they've been working on and something Rick talked about was for Obi, since he's so tall, and a word Rick used, angular, when Obi Toppin's running, it's harder for him to stop and get his balance for shooting. They've been working on that a little bit. But in terms of their fit together, Rick Carlisle said, it's a real asset to have two bigs, 4 and 5, that can both shoot the three ball so easily. Both are very good runners and rim runners. We can put early pressure on the rim, exactly what Tyrese Haliburton likes to do. So I think that partnership is going to work out really well. They can both shoot, and critically, we'll see with Toppin. 2 years at 30%, last year at 34.4%. If he's a 34.4% guy, that's huge for the Pacers, because then like I posted a video of this and I wrote it in the How Obi Toppin Can Help the Pacers story. If he can run guys off the line with his athleticism, that is significant. Turner got a lot better at that last year too. So then they both become a lot harder to guard as shooters and perimeter players. Fascinating stuff. Obi, when discussing their fit together, he said, Myles, he does a lot defensively and offensively. Him being able to stretch the floor, pop out to the perimeter, allows me to be in the paint a little bit, right? Kind of what I talked about with the Knicks guys. Toppin did not roll very much in New York, right? When Caitlin and I did our podcast previewing his season, his number was like less than 20 pick and rolls with the Knicks last season. It might have been with the Knicks ever. I can't remember. You'll have to go back and listen to that. He said, Obi also said, use my athleticism. If I roll, he pops type of thing. I feel like me and Myles will be pretty good together. I agree. And I had not thought a lot about what they'll look like together because, in theory, if one of them is screening, the other one isn't, you're relying on the other one who isn't setting the screen or making a play with the ball to space the floor or cut. And we've seen that Turner can do that well. We don't know what that looks like for Toppin in this setting, or if they're going to get in each other's way, or if they're going to be taking screening reps from each other, and what the most optimal way for that to work is. So there's been questions, but when I saw that 8 for 28, it kind of clicked in my head, just like how much different that is for Obi Toppin. And that's a half court thing. That is not a transition thing. That's not just a Tyrese Haliburton is awesome and can set him up and make his life easier thing. That is Obi Toppin has a better situation thing. And I think there's a chance that he looks better just naturally from a lot of these things. Everything has kind of gone his way. This is a great fresh start for him. And I think this is about the best fit possible for him in the league. So we'll learn a lot about Obi Toppin this year and his true talent level, right? If in this situation he can't totally pop, he could still be a good player. This isn't to say that he'll be a failure or anything, but this is the situation for him to explode. We'll see if he actually does, but I really wanted to dive into that and get the inside of Carlisle, Toppin, and of course Myles Turner. See how they all fit together. Pacers will finally have some size at the 4 with Toppin and Walker. Tomorrow here on Locked On Pacers, we're previewing the preseason. Somehow it's already time to do that. So Friday's show, we'll be looking ahead at, of course, their Sunday game against Memphis and the whole preseason, what to watch for, lineups, certain players' performance, just stuff we'll learn about this Pacers team in these 4 tune-up games. And next week, we'll be breaking those games down. We'll be talking more about what the Pacers are saying and doing, looking ahead at their future games, asking questions about their veteran players. Lots of fun stuff coming and planned here on the Locked On Pacers podcast. Rhett Bauer will be joining us tomorrow, and he'll be doing one of our shows just before the season from a season preview perspective. So lots of fun stuff coming here on the show. Let me know if there's anything you want to hear about from practice by either commenting below if you're watching on YouTube or tweeting at me or Xing or whatever. I'm on there at Tony R. East. This show is at Locked On Pacers. Thank you all a ton for listening today. Have a fantastic rest of your day. We'll see you soon.